Hello and welcome to the West London Sport QPR podcast with myself, David McIntyre, West London Sports, James Paterson, and former QPR striker Kevin Gallen. We're going to be talking about the win over Charlton, QPR's transfer window, and one or two other bits and bobs. James, who's been heavily involved with the podcast and other things we do for a while, is constantly reminding me that I'm always forgetting to ask you to like, comment and subscribe. We do appreciate the support and the feedback that you give us. But that would help us a lot. So I've remembered, James, you don't have to remind me this time. First off, though, we are going to mention Andy Sinton, former QPR winger, as everyone knows, and England winger, and currently the club's ambassador, who recently did suffer a heart attack. He's on the mend, thankfully. He was a great player for QPR, and I think he's been a real success as club ambassador. I think he's been superb in the role, a great guy. And a former teammate of yours, Kev. I'll come to you in a sec. But needless to say, we wish Andy the very best. And I'm looking forward to seeing him back at games and so on soon in a role that he's, as I said, been absolutely fantastic in. A superb club ambassador for QPR. And Kev, someone obviously you know very well and have known for a long time.
Yeah, I wish Andy I did all the best. I texted him straight away when I found out he got back to me, and thankfully he said he was on the mend. Yeah, I've known Andy since when I first joined in 1992. He was one in that team, which was one of the best QPR teams I grew up watching and fortunate enough to train with and play with in the end. He was a great guy then, a great player. He's come back as ambassador. I think he's done a fantastic job bringing back old players that probably you wouldn't ever see again. Like, you know, teammates who live abroad and then they come back and you bump into them at the ground. An example is Jurgen Sommer came back in, it was April, and hadn't spoke to Jurgen for a while. It was great to see him. Reminded him of the time when he punched me. He punched me in the nose and absolutely knocked me out, not on purpose, but as a goalkeeper. And you know, he was a big man, so. It did remind me of that, but without Andy Sinton organising these things, I wouldn't get to discuss these incidents from many years ago with ex-players. So, yeah, Andy, wish him all the best, and hopefully he gets back soon. Always bump into him at QPR and always have a good chat, and he's always very enthusiastic and always have a good chat about memories and the current situation. So, yeah, all the best, Andy, from everyone at QPR and supporters-wise as well.
I'm into that. And the Charlton game then, guys. Good win, 3-1, much needed win. James, we're going to come to you first because you were the closest man, literally, to Julian Stefan after that game in that press conference afterwards. What did you pick up from him after that good result from his point of view, for sure?
Yeah, he seemed really balanced. He seemed like he was in control and was really happy with the situation. I know that he was promising that there'd be a lot of changes, and he was just justifying those changes that he'd made. But yeah, I think he was obviously in really good spirits. I did ask him at the end of the press conference how he'd celebrate the win, but didn't really give much away at all. But I thought I was really impressed with how he responded. We spoke a bit. I asked about the reasoning for why he dropped Field, and it looked like that was one of the main reasons that he wanted to change things from the Coventry game the week previously. But yeah, as a whole, impressed with his reaction from the first win.
Kev, your thoughts on that game then?
Yeah, no, we did the week. We did predict that we would win, Dave, didn't we? I think we went 3-0 or 2. Well, I went 1-2-1. I didn't think it would be 3-1. I thought we started off really well. I thought if we started off like we said, on the front foot, balls in behind, went a bit longer, long throw-ins. Every time there was a throw-in in the final third, Paul Smith either side would run over and throw it into the box with Jimmy Dunn back in the team. Went longer than what I thought we would, more direct, suited us, more direct with Coney in the team, because now they're passing it around the back, which caused us a lot of problems against Coventry and against Watford away. This time, when you do pass it around the back and it goes back to the keeper, we can now go long to Kone and he can and he can physically handle the battle with the centre halves and get hold of it, which then allows the whole team to get up the pitch and then play from there. So went a lot longer than previous games, and it was the right decision to do, and it was a great result in the end. Could have went either way. At one stage, at 1-1, their right winger or left winger, he had an opportunity to go down in the box, and if he did, it was a blatant penalty. And then Kelman went down just outside the box, so we got away with it a little bit there. But the final 10 minutes was very good, and Sato came on, and I thought he really changed the game. I thought he looked the fittest player on the pitch, and what impressed me is that he played more inside in sort of like a number 10 role instead of wide, which I think suited him, and he took his goal excellently. And when he came on, he was the best player on the pitch, and I think he changed the game in QPR's favour.
He did. Sato definitely did look like he'd grown a lot. Like physically, he looked bigger and stronger, and I think he looked better than what he was last season when he came on. I don't know if it's because maybe he was up against players that had like more tired legs or something. But yeah, he was massively improved. Kev, I wanted to ask you about what your thoughts were on Kone versus Kelman, because obviously we've seen Kelman in bits and over the last few years, but obviously now we've had a couple of decent run-outs for Kone. What do you think is the main sort of differences between those two?
Well, the main thing I see is that Kelman, you have to play a certain way tactically, and that's you have to get the ball through the back into midfield, and then that's when he sort of will come alive with runs in behind and diagonal runs and balls slid in behind. Where with Kone, more physical, more power. The ball can go from back to front quicker. He can get hold of it, and then, like I said just before, everyone then can join in and get up the pitch. So they're the main differences. Kone, you ain't going to play balls in behind and channel. I don't think he's got the legs for that. Get the ball in and around him. He seems to have good touch, brings other people into play, and decent awareness of the players around him. But yeah, but the main thing I think is Kelman. How do you get the ball to him? You can't go back to front because he ain't got the physical stature to get hold of it or win headers. You have to play a certain way where Kone, you can go back to front and also he'd be a threat in the air with crosses. So they're the main differences, really.
It was a perfect response, really, wasn't it, to the Coventry game? And we spoke before the game, didn't we, Kev? About I did expect that. The fast start was exactly what I expected. I definitely picked up that kind of vibe in the days before the game, that it was going to be a fast start. I did say I thought perhaps even 2 or 3 early on. The start did fade a lot quicker than I thought it would. Kind of faded after about 20 minutes or so. I thought it would last a half or 2, and then Rangers would find it difficult from there, but would get over the line. So the fast start faded a bit faster than I thought it would. And what I didn't expect was the second win once Charlton got on top. I thought that it would be a game that once Charlton got on top, they stayed on top, but perhaps couldn't get back in the game in terms of goals. But I didn't anticipate Rangers kind of struggling that quickly and then getting that second win. And that was, I think, was a really good sign in the second half, the fact that they managed to get themselves back on top after losing their way a bit, and in the end got the win that was definitely needed. I think it did sort of raise a question that we've kind of spoken about before, Kev, and that's the famous game model, which, as we've mentioned, 2 seasons in a row has arguably been quite heavily compromised by the previous head coach making some changes when it became clear that the desired style of play wasn't working. It's happened again, so that's 3 times in a row. Although we are only talking about one game, we should mention that. But again, there has been that change, that kind of act of pragmatism to try and stop a rot and get some points on the board, Kev. So what are we thinking about this now, this game model? This is a trend now, isn't it, where changes have had to be made soon into a season when it's not gone as well as the club would have hoped?
Well, I just think that it's the right thing to do, especially at home. I do think you have to impose yourself on the opponent very early in the game. We did that. I agree that we did fade quicker than you thought and I thought as well. But it'd be interesting to see what happens in the next game, because the next game I think you're going to play against a very physical team. And are you going to go more physical and more direct? I think it suits the players anyway. I mean, I think if you're playing Kone up front, I think you have to go back to front, because that will suit his game better than the other way. Also, I just don't see at the moment with Joe Walsh in goal and Jimmy Dunn as right back, how we can and the midfielders that we've got, they're just not comfortable playing at the moment. This can change, but at this precise moment in the last few games, those players we've got do not suit the game model. And I think we have to go, and Cervantes done it before. He realised, and now I think Julian Stefan has realised, we have to go a little bit more direct to get points on the table. It's all right having a game model, and we would want to develop players, this, that, and the other. If you don't get any points, and you're in the bottom three, or you're struggling like we were at the start of last season, it's no good to no one. The fans, the players, you're going into games losing every week. You're never going to be playing your best because your confidence is low. You need points, you need wins, you need confidence. And I don't think at the moment we have got the players to play that way. To play the ball out from the back. And why there's this trend that everyone has to do it. I don't see why everyone has to do it. It's saying everyone has to play a certain way. And one of the biggest bugbears of mine is, when they talk about managers, he plays the right way. I just don't. What's the right way? Winning football matches is the right way for me. And we won playing a certain way against Charlton, and I think the manager will have to do that again to get something against Wrexham, who are a big physical team.
James, what do you think?
Yeah, you could clearly see that the passing out from the back has been dropped, which I think you could tell in the stadium, everyone was really happy that wasn't the routine anymore that we were going for. But Joe Walsh, you can tell that his distribution still needs a bit of work. Like, he's nowhere near as comfortable on the ball as Nardi, but even the long balls that he's kicking out are occasionally kind of going straight out to the wings. But I was thinking, for the goal kick routine, would you maybe see Dunn that would push up more on the right wing to try and receive the balls a bit, to knock it down into the middle for the likes of Kone or Dembele, whoever's around them? But it does seem like it's a sticking plaster at the moment to move away from what happened at Coventry, and they had to change things immediately. But I think we probably will see some more changes, and we're not going to see passing out from the back for at least a couple more games, I don't think.
I mean, it's an interesting one about the game model, isn't it? I mean, some might have seen or heard the podcast with John D'Souza, who's QPR's head of methodology. If you haven't seen it, it is on the channel. And I suggested to John that there was a kind of big fuss about a game model, when in fact in consecutive seasons it had to be changed, and he pushed back quite strongly on that idea. So I know it's not an idea that people at the club kind of subscribe to, but it is 3 seasons in a row. It's also important to add, I think, guys, that's not peculiar to the current setup. If you remember, it happened with Mark Warburton as well. I mean, he had a very specific idea of how he wanted to play, and kind of ran into trouble. And if you remember, Charlie Austin was then brought in. He was played up front with Dykes, and there was more of an emphasis on getting the ball forward. And in fact, the team went on a great run during the second half of that season. And then there was the same question, really, that there was after Cifuentes' first season, which was, is the manager going to carry on in that vein, or is he going to go back to his preferred style? And the answer again was that the manager did go back to his preferred style. And again, there were certain problems. So it isn't new to the current setup. This has been going on for a while. And as I said to you in a previous podcast, I'm not convinced of this idea that somehow QPR have players that can't play the ball out from the back. Other teams in the Championship do it, pretty modest ones below the Championship. And there are players at QPR who've played it for previous clubs or with their national teams. I do think there's perhaps something specific with Rangers at the moment. It can be a confidence issue, all sorts of factors. But I think there's no intrinsic reason why the team can't play the ball out from the back. Perhaps if they get some points on the board and there's less pressure on it, that might happen. It might happen naturally. What do you think about that, Kev?
Well, it just depends. Like if Joe Walsh has the ball as a goal kick, and the other team are pressing really high, then are you going to really invite that for them to try and nick the ball high up the pitch, or are you going to go a bit longer? Now, if they back off and say, have the ball, then you play out from the back. So it depends on what the opposition is doing and how confident you are. Are you confident enough if they're going to do a high press and really press you? Are you confident enough to play out from the back, or is it too risky and go a little bit longer? Now you can go a little bit longer because you've got Kone who can get hold of the ball. So where before, when Burrell was playing against Coventry, his game isn't holding the ball up. So the opposition knew that, and they will say, we'll do a high press, but then you can also hit it long and we'll win that ball anyway and still get the ball. Where now they do a high press, we knock it long, and we now got a chance of getting hold of the ball, and Kone gets hold of it, and now we're on the attack. So we'll see. These are different. The options are, we've got a different option now where we can bang it long and go over their press, where before we didn't really, because it was just coming straight back.
Well, let's move on to the transfer window then. There's a bit to discuss there. Kev, first, your thoughts on the business Rangers did during that summer transfer window?
Yeah, no, I thought there's some good signings. I mean, I wasn't too sure about the Sato one because I thought we had a lot of cover in those positions. He comes on against Wrexham, against Charlton, and he changes the game, and which will then sort of, I would say, puts him in as a starter automatically for this game coming up. We've had injuries, so we were a bit light, but when everyone's fit, we have got a lot of wingers, number 10s at the club. The left back was very much needed, especially with Lakesh getting injured. Kone, I think, is an upgrade, a big upgrade on Salah. So all in all, Apoku, see the first game, but then he gets injured, so be interested to see what happens when he comes back. Have I missed anyone? Who else have we signed? We did sign a lot of players.
Mbenge was a good signing, I think.
Oh yeah. So Mbenge, I like him. I think he's aggressive, very front foot. I do think there's a mistake in him where he can, and he was very fortunate with in the second half, not to get sent off because, if it was the other way around, we would have been armed and they're sent off. So he's a little bit raw, but I like his attitude. I like his front style of, attacking the ball and then running out with it. But I think it's that time will tell. Everyone told me last season when we signed all these players, we've signed 8 or 9 players. It was a great transfer window. We only had one game until November, so we have to wait and see. The proof is always in the pudding, as in points on the table, points on the board. So I'm gonna, at the moment, it looks good, but we need to get some win. We've got to win. We need to carry it on in the next couple of months, and then maybe you can ask me that in November. Same question.
Any other kind of players or areas any players that you would have liked to have seen come in, Kev, or any areas you would have liked to have seen strengthened further?
Well, the big talk was Ronnie Edwards coming in. Were we close? And there was a rumour of Senny Dieng coming back as a goalkeeper. You can probably tell us more about that than what I can.
Well, I think they wanted Edwards, and that would have been a very popular signing. I'm not sure it was. I wouldn't say it was unrealistic, but obviously, Southampton have got an England under-21 defender on their hands there, and even though he's not kind of like top of the pecking order, the value of someone like that in the transfer market, I got the impression that there was certainly a willingness of QPR to do it, and I got the impression that Southampton were maybe a little bit taken aback by the extent of that willingness of QPR really chase it, and chase it they did right up until the last. Up to the last. In fairness, it's an interesting one with Edwards, because I think there is that question over his value, which is a difficult one. I think if you're in Southampton's position, no one wants to be the one that takes that decision and then potentially is accountable for the fact that someone moves on and is worth a lot more a couple of years down the line. No one wants that particular hot potato at a time like that. In terms of his value, it's an interesting one because, if he plays for Southampton, gets a few games, and his form improves because he's not been in the best form, you could see that his price would then be well out of QPR's reach come January and beyond. If he sat on the bench, then there's a potential that his value could actually go down from Southampton's point of view in January, and perhaps they've done the wrong thing, by not offloading him. So I think there's a chance that the Edwards thing might resurface. Seny Dieng was quite a funny one. I think basically with Dieng, Paul Nardi wasn't going to go, even though that was a possibility earlier in the window. And I think with Dieng, it would have been a good move for him, potentially going back to QPR. He's been injured, going back to London, that kind of thing. As far as I could see, there was basically no budget for QPR to do that. And it was never realistic from that point of view. And my impression was that in the final sort of stages of the window, the Seny camp kind of accepted that it wasn't realistic from QPR's point of view. And that one was put out there, I think, to perhaps flush out other potentially interested clubs that might give him something before the window closed. That's how I read that anyway, that kind of suggestion that QPR was a goer. I think it was a bit of a late attempt by his camp to try and drum up some other possible interest in him. In terms of the window for QPR, I said on a previous podcast, I thought that Rangers got off to a fabulous start. I thought the first two signings, and Benge and Poku, were great. Obviously, Poku's been injured, but still a very good player, and that kind of also coincided with Jimmy Dunn signing a new contract. So it was a great start to the window. Inevitably, things kind of like evened out, and other clubs did some decent business, and Kone then looks like it's a good signing. So on paper, I think that the signings have been good. I think the strength of the squad has improved a lot. But the story of QPR over decades has been one of signings and players that do look good on paper, but there's perhaps been other issues around the club in terms of the setup and so on. Injuries are still a factor, aren't they? That's a continual one. James, what were your thoughts on the window from QPR?
I thought it was, like similar to you. I was really excited by the start of the window. A lot of really promising signings that I wouldn't have expected us to be able to get within our budgetary restraints, and just luring them to QPR. I think potentially one of the most important signings for us might be Reece Norrington-Davies, although he's not the flashiest or most exciting signing, just because we needed a bit more experience and depth in that left back position more than anything else. I felt at the start of the season, with losing Larkesh to injury and Escudinha showing a lot of prospect but being quite young and inexperienced and out of position a lot of the time. So I think he had a promising debut, a little bit loose on some touches, but Norrington-Davies could be really important for us. And one that we didn't mention was securing Isaac Hayden on the last week of the transfer window. I think adding that depth, although it's not really what we ultimately might have really wanted in getting like a bit more of a progressive 8 that could have sat in midfield and progressed the ball up the pitch to the attacking players. I think he's also just someone that is so experienced at this level, has an ability to really calm everyone down on the pitch in the big games, which is what Stefan was saying after the game on Saturday. He's just got that experienced head and is very used to playing championship games. So I think all in all, very happy with the window. I would have liked to have seen another left back potentially, and maybe a number 8, but very happy really.
And no significant outgoings either. which obviously was another factor.
I guess Salah is a fairly significant outgoing, and I don't know if you guys saw, but he got like a hat trick in his debut for Dusseldorf, was it? Yeah, I think that was a move that needed to happen, and just from like being in the ground and seeing him warm up, and also at Watford away, and seeing the reception that the other new signings had got in comparison to when he came on. Yeah, it was a move that needed to happen, and I think that's a good outgoing for us. But yeah, I wanted to ask you, David, about like what interest there were for our players from external sort of clubs.
I wouldn't say a massive amount. I mean, I agree with James. Salah had to happen, but I mean, he wasn't going to play anyway. By the time he left, he was well down the pecking order in terms of interest in other players. I saw a few bits and bobs around, but nothing in those. And Jonathan Varane, really, I think, was the main one. There was a few clubs that kind of were quite keen on him during the window. Espanyol, Basel, Rapid Vienna, St Etienne, and St Etienne did actually come in with a better offer late in the window. But the money that was being talked about wasn't really anywhere near what I think QPR would want. And even if it had it been, I don't think he would have gone anyway, to be perfectly honest. Other than that, yeah, not too much. A little bit of interest in Ilias Chair actually from Saudi, but that didn't really come to anything. And in any case, he's injured anyway. So yeah, I mean, I think other windows going forward will need to be busier in terms of interest in QPR players and outgoings, because that's what the club wants. They want to generate that and get some income in. Yeah, but overall, in terms of players signed, I did think it was a half decent window for Rangers. Before we finish, then let's have a prediction about the Wrexham game on Saturday. Kev, what are you thinking about that one?
I think it's a real tough game. I think they're quite. They've spent a few quid, obviously, with the money they've got. I think they're a big, strong team. I think we will go with a big, strong team against them, as big as we possibly and physical as possible. I will take a 1-1 draw right now. I think it's going to be a tough game, but every time I think QPR are going to not do something, they usually surprise me and do something. But 1-1.
James?
Yeah, I'm the same as you, really. I also feel like we're going to really struggle, and it's away from home. But now with the optimism from the last game, and I think probably we'll be resorting to the longer ball again and not allowing them to press us as much as other teams have when we were away at Coventry, for example. I'm going to go for a slightly more optimistic 2-1.
That is very optimistic. I'm gonna go with Kev's 1-1, I think. Yeah, we'll leave it there for now. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Kev. Thanks, James. Thanks, everyone. And we'll catch you again soon. Cheers.